in the direction of Summon. So you can be standing in your driveway and just tap the Summon button from the pull-down menu on your phone, and the car will open the garage door, come to you, and then close the garage door behind it. And then you can also unsummon or park the car, and again, just sort of do the pull-down menu, tap, one quick tap, and the car will go to the garage, open the door if it's not open, otherwise just go right in, and then close the garage door behind it. So it's just a baby step in the direction of Summon, but ultimately you'll be able to summon your car from anywhere, anywhere where there's a land bridge, anywhere that the car can actually physically get to you. So I actually think, and I might be slightly optimistic on this, but I think that within 2 years you'll be able to summon your car from across the country. So that if you're, let's say, in New York and your car is in Los Angeles, it will find its way to you and meet you wherever your phone is. So the phone will just communicate with the car and tell the car where to find you, and it'll just automatically charge itself along the whole journey. So I think that, like I said, I might be slightly optimistic on that, but not I don't think significantly optimistic that we can do that probably in about 2 years. So this is the first little step in that direction. And I think it's quite profound to actually experience it, even though it is a baby step. And then in addition, we've made a number of refinements and improvements in the general autopilot. I think at this point with 7.1 and with the enhanced fleet learning that comes with 7.1, we'll have to see what the statistics say, but I believe that it is probably better than human at this point in highway driving, or it certainly will be as the fleet learning gets more and more sophisticated. That's actually been my observation when I've been testing the car, is that it's certainly better than human at staying in the center of the lane compared to other cars on the road. So I think that's sort of quite exciting. And if it isn't quite better than human yet, it certainly will be in the coming months. I think those are the two main things. And of course, the car can automatically parallel park with the tap of a button. It can also now reverse park in. So if you want to back into a space, it'll do that too, just automatically. Yeah, I think those are the main things. So we can just jump into questions then.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for live Q&A. Just click the little raised hand icon at the bottom of the Q&A panel. First question is from Deanne Durbin from Associated Press.
Thanks for taking the call. Hi, thanks for taking the call. I'm wondering why the speed restrictions. Are there particular things that happened that made you decide to do that?
Well, I don't think the speed restriction we introduced with 7.1 is particularly arduous. It's really just capping the maximum speed on roads without a center divider at 5 miles above the speed limit or 10 kilometers above the speed limit in Europe. So, or in places with things in kilometers. So it's it just means like on roads without a center divider where there's a potential for a more serious collision, it kind of makes sense to not go more than maybe 5 miles above the speed limit. That's the only restriction really. I think it's quite reasonable. Oh, and I forgot to mention one important point, which is we've added curve speed adaptation to the autopilot capability. So the car will look ahead to the oncoming curves and reduce its speed, whereas previously in 7.0 it would maintain a fixed speed even if you went around a sharp corner, and now it will automatically reduce the speed. I think those are both quite important safety enhancements.
And we have a question from Chris Perkins at Road and Track.
Hey there. With the new summoning feature, it seems more likely now that we'll actually see a production version of the evil robot snake charger. Is that something that could reach production in the near future?
Yes, we will do some version of that. We'll try to make it look less creepy, maybe. I mean, it is fascinatingly. It's sort of fascinating in its creepiness.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, and I think we'd probably roll it out first on some of the superchargers, and see how that goes. But I think it's quite interesting. Essentially the car will need to sort of automatically charge, and so that means you need some sort of automated system on the charger side to connect.
And we have one from Mike Balaban from Jalopnik.
Hey, Elon. Thanks so much for having us. I just have a quick question about, you mentioned that in 2 years, the car would actually be able to drive itself from New York to Los Angeles. And I'm just wondering, would that be limited to something like the Model X and Model 3, or would the Model S be able to do that from an over-the-air firmware update or something like that?
Well, I mean, we do need more sensors than the car currently has to achieve that goal. So this is partly a hardware, partly a software thing. Because in order to do that really by itself, you need a lot of redundancy, and more cameras, more radars, and like I said, the kind of redundant electronics, redundant power buses, and that kind of thing. So essentially, so that the cars fail operational. Any system can fail, and the car doesn't need to go to back up to a driver. So right now, the driver is sort of plan B if something goes wrong with the electronics, it fails the driver, and for that thing, it would need to fail to another set of electronics on the car.
And we have a question from Nikki Gordon, Bloomfield Transport Evolved.
Good morning, Elon. I was wondering if you would care to comment on the proposed legislation and legislative changes that California is considering, and how you view an importance of a nationwide standard for autonomous drive in the future.
That's a good point. I mean, certainly it would be. It would certainly make things difficult if all states adopted separate standards, or if there was a wide range of standards. So some consistency at the federal level, I think, would be good, or at least for the states to coordinate their activity and be fairly consistent in what they do. Otherwise, it's going to get pretty weird if the car's behavior has to change from when it crosses the state border. But I mean, so far our conversations with the California Department of Transport and DMV have been quite positive, and they do recognize that this is what's coming, and they just want to, I think, approach it in the right way. So I mean, I think California's probably put from what I can see, the most amount of thought into into autonomous transport, and but they do want to sort of regulate it. For obvious reasons, you don't want kind of robot cars misbehaving and doing crazy things. So I think that California just wants to make sure that there have been adequate safety precautions before cars really go autonomous.
And next we have a question from Mark Chidiak from Bloomberg News.
Hi, yes. My question is regarding this software update, and it sounds like you feel like cars may be autonomous within 2 years. Is that fair, or is it simply? I was just trying to get a sense of when we might see fully autonomous cars.
I think so.
Within 2 years.
I think it's sort of call it 24 to 36 months. I mean, it's really. I'd be very surprised if it's beyond that point. Now that's when it's technically possible for a generalized, I think I'd be highly confident that there's a generalized solution for fully self-driving vehicles in that time frame. So meaning it would work anywhere in the country, as opposed to limited to a particular city or set of roads. One also needs to set a reliability threshold or a safety threshold for self-driving autonomous cars. I think like in that 24, 36 month time frame, it will be able to drive on, we call it virtually all roads at a safety level significantly better than human.
And another question from Deanne Durbin from the Associated Press.
I'm sorry, I didn't actually have another question. I guess the hand was still raised or something, but I did want to ask, you can summon from your phone or from the fob. The press release said the fob, but I
Correct.
also heard you at the beginning talking about the phone. So it's both, or?
It's both, yeah. So you can
okay.
you can basically do a coded key press. Yeah, you can do a coded key press on your key fob, or you'll be able to just pull down the quick action menu on your phone and tap Summon AutoPark.
And we have a written question from Daniel Sparks from Motley Fool. His question is, how long do you think it will take for the case to be very clear that the more autonomous-like features of Autopilot, such as autosteer, to make a compelling case that Tesla is setting new standards in safety with this technology compared to human drivers?
I think we'll probably be able to make some of those arguments this year. The key is to collect tens of millions or perhaps hundreds of millions of miles of driving, probably in the hundreds of millions of miles. And right now, for cars that have the autonomous capability, we see about 1 million miles a day of driving. And that number is increasing, obviously, with each passing week as the fleet increases. So what we're able to do is compare the false positives and false negatives over a statistically significant data set and say, okay, these are the cases where if the car had been in autonomous mode, it would have prevented an accident, or conceivably this is a case where if it was in autonomous mode, it would have it caused an accident. I should say thus far the results have been very good, although it's still early in the data accumulation period. Actually, the only cases that we're really aware of where there's some accidents is where, in a couple of cases, customers thought the autonomous driving mode was on, but actually it wasn't. So then they thought that the autonomous driving caused the accident, but actually it was just that they thought it was on, but it wasn't. That was a couple of cases. But no serious injuries or anything.
And we have a question from David Baker, the San Francisco Chronicle.
Hi, I actually wanted to follow up on that last point there. I mean, when you first put out the Autopilot features, there were people posting their videos online of doing truly crazy, borderline stupid things with the cars. Have you seen any cases where the Autopilot did actually cause an accident, or is it only things where there's an element of human error there?
I'm actually not aware of any cases where the Autopilot caused an accident. It's possible that there may have been some small accidents that didn't reach me or were never reported to Tesla or something like that. But no, I'm not aware of any. In fact, even the cases where people did pretty crazy things, like set the car in autonomous mode and then got into the back seat and that kind of thing. Oddly enough, none of those actually resulted in an accident that I'm aware of.
Okay, and we have a question from Mike Ramsey from the Wall Street Journal. His question is, when will you build in new Autopilot hardware into the Model S?
Well, I mean, we don't want to comment on future product transitions, but it's certainly not immediately. We are working on a new hardware suite, but it'll be some time before that enters production. All right, sounds like that may be
Sebastian Blanco from AutoBlock Green.
Okay.
Hello, yes, thank you, Elon. What have you figured out about insurance costs or insurance situations if the insured driver is not in the vehicle if something happens to it?
Do you mean during the parking? Well, I mean, in this case, I would hesitate to call the parking a truly autonomous feature since you have to actuate it and the key has to be within a certain range. It's more like a remote control feature at this point. So, I mean, I guess the liability would be with the driver. And we do take, we are very clearly warning that this is beta feature. There are many different parking garage scenarios, and it's not, it may not work in all of them. So it's important for people using the Summon and self-park capability to stay inside of the vehicle and be prepared to tap the key if they see it's going wrong. So you can stop the AutoPark and Summon function at any time just by tapping the key. And that's really what we strongly recommend at this point. So yeah, I mean, the driver would be responsible for anything that happens. Although I suspect there's going to be somebody quite rare that there's any issues. Like very rare. I mean, the car can even detect if like a fairly small dog walks past. So it's it's not absolutely perfect, but I think it's probably better than a person right now. Even in if you say, like, what's the probability of having a little fender scrape, even with the beta version of Summon AutoPark, I think it's probably less than a person.
And that's all the questions we have at this time.
All right, thanks everyone.